Here's a question for you. How do we read? I love asking simple questions. But seriously, how do we read? I remember when I was a kid, I used to do this thing where I'd attempt to not read the billboards in the back seat of the car. So every time we'd pass one by, I would attempt to not read it. But it just happened. I couldn't stop it. Okay, I'd cheat and close my eyes to make myself feel good, but that's besides the point. I was chatting with Stefan in the chat room earlier, and I was playing with this idea of every time we capture a fleeting note, it's like capturing a photograph at the scene of a crime, right? And each piece of evidence would be something like Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and so on. And then the question was, what are we bringing to justice? What are we justifying? I don't want to talk too much about permanent notes, but if we had to think about this, what does evidence really do? Doesn't it point us towards the motive and the reason for the crime? And what if the crime was actually our attempts at justifying why this passage, of all other passages, stood out to us? We're collecting the evidence or abstracting in the fleeting notes phase to bring to justice how this would corroborate with all the other pieces of evidence in our Zettelkasten. And you have to remember, this isn't a petty crime. This is a complex web that we're attempting to solve with each new piece of evidence that has been fully absorbed, connected with everything else we may have already discovered. I hope you're having fun with this. I mean, I certainly am. So, if we were to say continue this analogy, how would you capture your evidence? Would you rather move things around and take one big picture? Or would you take each piece of evidence and have in frame everything that you'd need for later? And what happens if the scene is corrupted and you can't go back? What then? And I do hope you place that much importance on your thinking, on your note taking. I want to show you something that I think might help in the long run. See, one of the biggest mistakes I see when people capture their fleeting notes is when they miss that ephemeral moment. It's literally like a flash of aha. And if you miss it, you're left searching up and down the paragraph to pinpoint what you just missed. And I know it seems a bit dramatic, but it's true. These little glimmers or fast fleeting thoughts are incredibly elusive, and how we capture will determine how we process them later. Too much, and you can't pin it down. But let me show you something. I'm going to flash a paragraph on the screen, and I want you to read it, looking for a fleeting note to capture. And of course, this won't be a true representation of that aha moment because yes, but there's a lesson here. How was that? If you're anything like me, you almost want to summarize the whole paragraph because there's just so much good stuff in there. But we want to remember that we only want to capture a single piece of evidence and not the whole crime scene. We can go back and take a look if we ever need to with our reference notes, but what we're looking to do is find that exact moment where we got a flash of something. And my difficulty is having to explain that. Let's do this. Here's another way of reading that same paragraph, but broken down into just the words. How was that? Did you almost want to stop the video because something resonated? I mean, even if you didn't, you still understood that even at the scale of each individual word, you could see was packed with a ton of information. This is what happens when we slow things down, when we become intentional with our reading. Maybe even detectives looking for clues until we stumble upon a smoking gun. Capture that, and then you can build a case. I'll see you in the guided writing exercise.